God bless everybody. Welcome back to Covenant and Called. I am one half of your host, Trey.
And I'm Gabby.
Today we're going to talk about love language and intentional love. How do you find out your significant other's love language?
Well, I would say the obvious answer is to ask, right?
But what if, like me, I didn't know anything about love languages? Like I didn't know that there were categories and subcategories. So back then you would have asked me, I would have been like, "What?" So I think is there a more practical way without asking? Because what if the person just doesn't know what their love language is?
I think though you can look at like the characteristics of like what that person like enjoys, like what they like, right? So like if you notice that like every time you give them a gift, like they're like, "Oh my gosh, like thank you so much," or like if they're constantly like wanting your time, like quality time, or like you can kind of like feel like what it is that they enjoy the most.
Why is it so important to know your significant other's love language?
Knowing your partner's love language is going to allow you to be able to provide that to them.
Mm,
If my love language is quality time, you as my husband need to know that so that I don't crave that if that's something that you're not like giving me.
or desire it elsewhere?
Yeah, like desire it elsewhere. Like you should be able to provide that to your spouse. Spouses have different love languages,
They do.
right?
They do.
So it's not like, if mine's is gifts of affirmation, like you could not like that at all. And so being able to learn your partner's love language so that you can attend
Yeah.
to that.
One of my wife's love languages is the scenery behind us. It's traveling. I don't know if that's even a
It's
category,
not.
but it should be because that's one of her love languages.
Okay, but that's yours too. So
Yeah, well, see, mines have changed. So that's another thing. How do you know if a love language has changed?
it comes back to the communication. Like you should know what your partner wants, right? But I still think that like it's rare for your love language to change.
Really?
Because mine has always been the
Traveling?
same. No, that's not a love language. But like mine has always been the same. What's my love language?
Oh my gosh. All right, we're going to be put on the spot here. What are the subcategories again?
Let's let everyone know what the 5 love languages are.
The 5 love languages, described and developed by Dr. Gary Chapman, are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. What are your love languages?
No. I asked you, what are my love languages?
Yeah, so you want me to answer that?
Yes.
Yeah. So after reading and reviewing this list, I would say all 5 categories are your love language.
Okay, which ones are my top? I would say I have top 2.
Quality time, definitely, and I would say there's 3 actually.
Okay.
Quality time, physical touch, and words of affirmation.
Okay.
I think acts of service, because that wasn't always a thing.
Yeah.
Acts of service became something because like now you like these kind of spontaneous trips. You like going places. Whereas before, your mindset was so confounded to depressing and cold Maryland that you didn't really break out of your shell until we took our first trip to, was it California?
Our first trip, was it California? No, our first trip was Florida. Our first ever
With
trip.
your parents. Okay. Yeah, but you had already been there. So yeah, so I think it evolved. It almost changed. And I brought that up because I think as you're with your spouse, over the years, things tend to change. Like desires change. So, I once was young, but now I am old. So when I was young, I craved the younger things, like the newest shoes or the newest trends, the newest amusement parks, right? And there's still a part of me that loves the amusement parks. I can't do it for too long as like I used to.
Yeah.
But like now, I love going to the gym. I like quiet time at the gym. I like books. Whereas that wasn't really a big thing that I was known for in the beginning. So I think that your love language, it can change. And I think that it's important to be able to spot the changes. Because not all the time can us men, I can't speak for women, but us men, we don't know how to communicate that, hey, instead of rubbing the back of my head, go buy me a new book, right? So like, I think that things do change, but you have to be aware of the signals. What are one of the negative consequences that not knowing your significant other's love language can cause?
I think it can essentially neglect the marriage in a way, because if my love language is quality time and you're not spending that quality time with me, it's going to essentially bring conflict, right? Or it's going to negatively affect that love between each other.
I agree. I second that. So then it would be vitally important, because I think if you don't know your significant other's love language, like I didn't for the first couple of years of being with you, again, I didn't know anything about love languages. I've never even heard the expression. Not knowing your significant other's love language can warrant unnecessary warfare between you two, between
Yeah.
the spouse, as well as spiritually, because you can cause depression on behalf of your spouse. If your spouse needs words of affirmation or physical touch, and you're not providing that,
Yeah.
it brings a lot of duress and stress and maybe even like abandonment upon the spouse. So I think knowing your spouse and being able to feel around, this goes back to that biblical verse, honor your wife as the weaker vessel. And it's not weaker as in physically weak, but it's more fragile. Being able to understand the needs and the desires, even the background. I think the background is important.
Yeah.
Understanding the background, where the spouse comes from, the family, the household that she's coming from, because a household with an absentee parent, whether it's a mom or a dad, there can be traits that lack within that individual.
Yeah.
Women that often don't have moms in their life, they lack like
Yeah.
that nurturing and that caring aspect. And then women who don't have a father, they long for approval and they long for affirmation. And so I believe that there are so many important factors that go into understanding your significant other's love language that it requires more than just a conversation. It actually requires searching. There's a proverb of mine that I love. It says that glory of God is to conceal a matter and the honor of kings is to search it out. I believe that that pertains to every aspect of life. When it comes to covenant, I think there is glory within marriage, but a lot of that glory is hidden. And unless someone goes and searches it out, they'll never be able to tap into that. They'll never be able to get to the spark, that feeling of, I always want to choose this. I always want to decide that I love my significant other. So I believe that there is a lot more that goes into being able to understand love language.
I completely agree. Well, you touched on like, searching it out, like knowing the behind the scenes of the person, right? You should know your partner's history. You should know like their testimony in a way, like the things that they've struggled with as a child in their childhood, because that, like you said, sometimes that connects to your love language. So, for me, quality time is my biggest one, right? And like based on like my history, I've always struggled with like loneliness. So it ties into that.
Yeah.
So that's how, besides just asking like, hey, what's your love language? Being able to search like, okay, what is it that my partner has struggled with? What is it that they were delivered from, or their testimony? And then figure out which one of the love languages coincides with that.
That's good.
Because that'll help you, determine, all right, this is where I need to step up and make sure that I am showing my husband or wife, the love in this area or whatever it is.
Amen. Let's take it a step further. Now that we have an understanding of our significant other's love language, what are ways that we can love intentionally with that knowledge, right? So for you, or you know what are my love languages?
Words of affirmation, gifts, and I think acts of service.
All right. So what are ways that you can love me intentionally now that you know and now that you understand my love language?
Yeah. So I've always known your love language. Don't make it seem like I just found out 13 years later. But so, okay, for example, for your love languages, right? Gifts. For you, like you kind of said it, spontaneously going and getting something that you enjoy. So like for you, it is books. You love books. But also an act of service is like if I go out of my way to like prepare dinner, or not necessarily prepare dinner because I don't know how to cook, but maybe like order takeout from like one of your favorite places, right? Like
It's one of my favorite places.
the other day, right? Trey was doing something and then he called me and I was like, oh yeah, babe, just come home because I have lunch for you. And he's like, oh, what'd you get? And I was like, Chipotle. He's like, what'd you get me from Chipotle? And I was like, your quesadilla with rice and your salsa. And he was like, okay, babe, great job. So it's like little things like that, but it goes a long way,
Yeah.
And so, something, it doesn't have to be always extravagant. We talk a lot about traveling. I mean, that's great, but there are ways to, like when the season doesn't allow for that, or, just on a regular rainy Tuesday, like you could still, make sure that you are intentionally loving your spouse, through their love languages, whatever it is. So those are like small ones, or maybe, like telling you like, hey babe, like you go and do what you need to do and I'll take care of the kids tonight, or like things like that are a good way to show that.
Amen. How can significant others or couples practice loving intentionally, or putting themselves in a situation where they have to do an exercise weekly? I think whether it's at the beginning or the end of your week, asking your significant other, what's on the agenda for this week? What's scheduled this week? What do you have going on? And going from there, right, you're able to engage like, okay, well, my significant other is busy on these days. Well, then on this day, I'm going to operate in this specific act of love, or this specific language. I'm going to surprise them with this, or I'm going to help them with this. If you ask at the end of the week, hey, how are you feeling? How, now that you've done everything,
Yeah.
what are you feeling this week? Do you want to go out and do things, or do you want to have a relaxed weekend? I think you can engage in a very simplistic way,
Yeah.
without having to take a grand step. But like, these are basic exercises. What do you have going on this week?
Yeah.
Or, hey, the week has been busy. What do you want to do this weekend? Or are you lazy? Do you want to engage more? What?
I think that's good. I think we do that a lot, We'll have our moments where I'm like, okay, babe, like, how do you feel? Like, because sometimes I'll be like up for either. I'll be like, do you want to like stay in and be lazy today? Or do you want
Typically,
to
she
like,
only asks me what I want to do when she doesn't want to do anything.
that's not true. That's not true. Because there's sometimes that like, okay, yeah, if I want to go do something, right? Take the kids somewhere. But then I'm like, I don't know if, Trey's exhausted, so I'll be
See?
like, hey, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay in tonight? Do you want to go out? Or even sometimes, like, so for me, like going back to the acts of service, like Trey does all the cooking in our house. And so sometimes I know that that can be overwhelming. And so, like, sometimes we'll be in the car on the way home from picking up the kids or something. I'll be like, babe, like, what's for dinner, right? It's like same the question every single day. But sometimes I'm like, how do you feel? Like, do you want to cook, or do you want to go out to eat? I think even that can go a long way, because I think that sometimes we have this in our minds that like whoever it is that is the cook, whether it's the wife or the husband, like they're obligated to do that every day. And sometimes you should be the understanding spouse to be able to alleviate them from that stress. Like, hey babe, like, do you feel like cooking tonight? Or do you prefer to go out, or maybe just order takeout and come home? Like, I know like that's a huge burden, off of the other person, because like they shouldn't need to do it every single day. Like, they deserve a break too.
I do.
So I even going back to that, like how you said, just asking. I think many marriages have issues because back to the communication. I mean, it's huge. Like, communicate how you're feeling. Sometimes Trey will even tell me if I forget to ask, like, hey babe, I don't feel like cooking tonight. Okay, babe, like, okay, like, what do you want? Let's go out to eat, or let's do whatever. Like, communicate. That's it. Like, communicating, expressing how you feel, asking the questions will ultimately set your marriage up for success, and will avoid so many fights, so many disagreements.
Agreed. Well, I hope that this was a blessing for you, that you have some takeaways, and that you're able to apply anything that you've learned in today's episode. Thanks for joining, guys.
Bye, guys.